All right, I'll go ahead and get started because I know we got great stuff. Hey, everybody, thank you for being on the EPM Empower Hour Live. We've got a great speaker. I'll get into it, but a little bit about what's going on, not just here at EPM, but in the industry. I'm actually technically walked away from my MBA board meeting that I'm supposed to be on right now, but it's okay. They've already gone over it, but great information already on there. And from an industry standpoint, the second biggest issue of the new administration is going to be affordable housing. So that's going to play a great role for this industry. But more importantly, as I said, as we move towards the purchase of the bank and as we're going to keep the bank separate from EPM, they do have a great builder lending division. And since we're going to be able to be entering in that space, we're just going to gain a whole lot of knowledge that we can bring back on the mortgage side to our clients, to everybody of that nature, to show where the affordability challenges are. So I definitely think our seat at the table is going to be growing as an organization. That's good. So everybody keeps stepping it up. And speaking of stepping it up, I will get into our guest speaker to transition into that. For a lot of you guys that don't know, Brittany, she's pretty famous for having been on Shark Tank along with other things, and also by her firstborn son getting a letter from Jim Harbaugh, the coach of Michigan. Obviously, she told us the story that he's done it for a few other people, but I always like to do it. But more importantly, her certification series and just her natural zest, appreciation for life, love, whatever you want to call it, I think is very powerful. I think it not only brings a great energy, but it really teaches us how to be super fans. You see, the super fans for myself as CEO of the organization is the culture and the vision. That's you guys. That's easy to do. We're doing all that stuff. We're always pouring in appreciation. But then how do you take it to the next level? How do you take it to that broker? How do you take it to that loan officer? How do you then take it and understand that it's at the end, a consumer is here. What we're doing is affected. And more importantly, home ownership is not only a wealth building, but you're really giving somebody a home. You're giving somewhere they can enjoy. We know how much home meant during this crisis. It's where love is kept to be going. It's where a lot of great positive emotions come out. So never, ever forget that site. And I think that's something that none of us really know how to do. So it's great that we have such an expert, not only here that's going to talk about it, but leading that certification series. So let me get back to my board meeting. Love you guys. Appreciate you all. EPM, be well. And without further ado, everybody give a round of applause and welcome Brittany Hodak. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you so much, Eddie. It's always so great to see you. You know I am a super fan of yours and the rest of the EPM team. So I am thrilled to be here and excited for this Q&A today. I'm also so excited to finally getting to be doing a Q&A with Angie. This is going to be so much fun, Angie. Yay. We have a lot. I feel like we had a similar upbringing with some of the same things that we love. So maybe we can
We did. I'm super excited to be able to be a part of today and have you as a speaker. So yeah, we'll just dive right in. You talk a lot about superfan, and we've all got our ideas of what a superfan is, but I want to hear from you. What's a superfan? How do we get one, and how do communication practices, maintain and grow that superfan base?
Awesome. Well, as a fellow 80s kid, I know you probably are a super fan of a lot of the same pop culture things that I am and have been over the years. And a lot of times when I say the word super fan, people think of, people who are going to have a giant Super Bowl party this weekend with their face paint and like be in their Bucks gears, or they think of, people who are waiting with bated breath for that new episode of their favorite show to come on Disney Plus, or people who are, buying the latest thing as soon as it's out. And certainly those types of things qualify as super fans. But when I say the word super fan, I'm really talking about customers who had such a great experience with you that they can't wait to work with you again, and they want to tell other people. So super fans are customers who create more customers for you. And especially when we're talking about on the wholesale side, super fans are brokers that had such an amazing experience with EPM that they want to come back again and again and again, and they're telling all of their friends to do the same.
Awesome.
All right. Brittany, I have a really quick question talking about the superfan experience and being a superfan. And in one of the videos, you defined being a superfan as a consumer that over-indexes in their affinity. So can you kind of elaborate that on that a little bit more, and kind of what that kind of like really, I guess, bringing it all together? I guess what's that empowerment, that involvement in creating a superfan?
Yeah, absolutely. So the full long definition that I like to give is actually 4 parts. It's a customer who over indexes in their affinity, which increases the likelihood that they're going to advocate on your behalf as part of everyday life. So the first part of those 4 parts that's important is the word customer. This is somebody who actually works with you. So we all have super fans that maybe haven't had a transactional relationship with us in the past. They could be, a roommate or a colleague or, a parent or a child, somebody who loves us, but their recommendation isn't going to hold as much weight as somebody who's actually worked with you in a transactional matter. So that's why I say customer. Now, when I say they over-index in their affinity, they really, really like you. There's something about working with you, the person, and you, the company, that they like more than the other options. So when all things are equal, they're going to say, you know what, that one, I choose that one. I want to work with you. So that's what we mean. They had a really great experience. That's the second part. The third part, they want to advocate on your behalf. So they're going to tell you. We've all had, and I would imagine on the wholesale side, you guys get this sometime, where you have a broker who loves working with you and is like, I'm not telling anybody, because I don't want anybody else to be in on this, right? Like I don't want one more loan in that pipe. Like I'm keeping this secret to myself. And, that's fine. Certainly we wish people would advocate on our behalf, but not everybody is going to. So again, when I talk about super fans, we're kicking out those people because we want the people who are creating more customers for us. And then the fourth part of that is when I say as part of everyday life, what that means is these are people who are doing it for the sake of doing it. They're talking about you, they're working with you, they're telling people about you because of their experience, not because there's some promotion, not because they're trying to win something. They're not somebody who has, an affiliate or partnership relationship with you. So when I talk about creating the super fans, that's what I'm talking about. And here's the secret. Here's what I want you guys to remember about today when we talk about creating super fans. The way that you create super fans, whether you're talking about work or in life or in anything that you will ever do, the way you create super fans is by connecting your story to every customer's story. You've got to connect your thing to their thing, what you're doing to what they're doing. And that intersection, that point where those two meet, that is where super fans are created, that intersection, because what you're doing is saying to somebody, here's why I'm relevant in your life. Here's why what I do matters to you. We're all busy. We all have thousands and thousands of messages that are flying our way every single hour. There's so much noise. There's so much static. When you can say to somebody, here's why what I do matters to you in a way that they understand, that connects with their thing, that is the foundational step. Like those are the building blocks of creating super fans. But you've got to have a compelling story and you've got to have a compelling answer to why you make their life better. You've got to be able to show them, not just tell them how you're going to improve their lives by working with you or having you in their life.
Excellent. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.
So how to create a super fan? We're obviously in mortgage business, you know exactly what we do. How do we set out to create that super fan and, like I said, really grow and nurture that relationship that maybe, the customer likes us, but how do we cross that line into super fan?
Well, so I think the first thing is getting in the right mindset. And I love what Eddy said at the beginning. You guys you're not just helping people get homes, you're changing lives. You're helping people have a place for their family. You're helping them build wealth. You're helping them achieve the American dream. Like you're superheroes, right? Like you should all be wearing capes. You're all out there absolutely changing the lives of people. And in a lot of cases, maybe you never even talk to these people, especially on the wholesale side, right? Like you may never even talk to that person, but don't ever lose sight of the fact that there is not just one person, but oftentimes a lot of people on the other side of every single transaction whose lives are directly impacted by what you do. And when you keep that at the core, when you keep that at the center, a lot of the things that would otherwise be annoying are less so annoying, right? Like when you think about the bigger picture, when you think about the bigger scheme of things. So Angie, to your question, the fastest way to create super fans always is by exceeding somebody's expectation, by making them feel appreciated, by making them feel validated, and by exceeding the expectations that they had moving in is how you're going to start to do that. So whether you're talking to somebody for the first time, or whether this is a customer that you've worked with 18 times over the past 4 years, and maybe some of the experiences have been okay, some of them have been not so great, to the extent that you can first define what the expectations are and then exceed those expectations, people are going to want to come back. And I like to say that if you think about every interaction that you're going to have throughout your entire life, really, right? Every single interaction that you have with people, every time you're talking to somebody, whether it's one-to-one, one-to-many, on the phone, on video, on email, every interaction you have is either going to be a net neutral, which is like a nothing burger, like it happens and you move on, a net negative, which means you leave that interaction feeling worse than you did before. Maybe you're more tired, maybe you're more overwhelmed, maybe you're more confused, or it's a net positive. You leave that experience feeling better than you did before the experience started. You have more energy, you're excited, you're happy. To the extent that you can make every one of your interactions a net positive for the person on the other side, or at a minimum, a net neutral, you're going to immediately see a difference in creating superfans, because what you're going to do is get a reputation as the kind of person that people like to work with, because it's easy. It's not hard, it's easy. And when there is news that you have to deliver, like there are always things that go wrong, you're delivering it in a way that makes the outcome neutral instead of negative. So you're not procrastinating, you're not trying to hide it, you're not making excuses, you're owning up, you're acknowledging what went wrong, you're apologizing for the impact that it's having on somebody else, and you're atoning, right? You're saying, here's what we're going to do to address this and move forward. And to the extent that you can do that and bring that to bring that intentionality to every interaction you have with somebody, you will see a huge difference in your life. Because when you make other people's experiences more positive, your experiences become more positive. Think about on an average day, like you can, this is a good exercise to do in a notebook. Like you can make pluses, minuses, and circles for net, neutral, and positive, and just see throughout the day. And to the extent that you have more net positive experiences and interactions, I promise you at the end of the day, you're going to feel so much better. You're going to have more energy, you're going to be more focused, and you're going to know that, you know, your inbox doesn't have to be something that's scary and overwhelming, or you don't have to, like, every time your phone rings, be like, do I want to pick this up? Because you're bringing the intentionality to make, at a very minimum, every interaction a neutral for the person on the other end.
That's great. Brittany, what's some of the best approaches to communicate with the client to go beyond that surface level? How do we really connect with by communicating with the client to really get to know them? Talk about how we can develop the relationships and build the rapport, but how do we know when we've first broken like that surface level, and then really kind of just continue to harness that relationship? Can you talk on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, you know, the two superpowers when it comes to creating better relationships are curiosity and empathy. So curiosity is, I want to know what's going on with you. And empathy is, I care what's going on with you, right? And to the extent that you can flex your curiosity and your empathy muscles, you're going to have so much better conversations with everyone, but specifically your customers, because you're going to know about them, right? It's and you can always start by sort of stalking people online. We're lucky enough to live in a time where people are sharing more about themselves than at any point in human history. And it is easier than it has ever been to find out information about anyone in the world. So don't approach people as just another number or just another name or just another broker. If you approach them as a person, as a human who has a family and friends and who's out there doing their job to try to help people achieve their home ownership dreams, when you bring that curiosity and when you lead with that empathy, you can create authentic relationships. And to the extent that you do that, again, it feels overwhelming. Like, I know if somebody is like, I have 17 hours of work to do in the next 6 hours, I don't have time to create relationships. But I promise you that you do. This is one of those things of like, if you said, you know, I don't have time to learn how to ride a bike because I'm so busy walking, or I don't have time to learn to drive a car because I'm so busy. I've got to walk. At some point you have to take the time to invest to learn to drive the car, because the ROI is going to be so great, right? Like now all of a sudden you don't have to walk somewhere because you've got a car that you can drive, but you've got to learn to drive the car. being relational instead of transactional is the same. To flex those muscles to say, I have to care about everyone that I do business with as a person. And not just because it makes financial sense, although I promise you it does. The ROI on relationships will always, always, always be there. But you've got to want to do it because it's the right thing to do. You've got to want to do it because to the extent that you are more curious and more empathetic, you are going to be a better communicator because you are going to think about the person on the other end of the communication, and you are going to do a better job creating relationships with them. And when you create relationships, people are going to want to come back and work with you again and again, because what happens? You've got this natural mirroring effect, right? As humans, when somebody is curious about us, we're curious about them. When they show us attention, we want to show them attention. That's how relationships start. So to the extent that you're being curious and empathetic, you're creating relationships to make people want to come back and work with you again, because now they know you more than they know all of the other people that they could go to.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.
With communication practices, obviously this year's been a little wild, and we're all, doing Zooms, and there's a lot, the personal face-to-face interactions, are so limited. Are there any tips that we can do to better our communication, make sure we're not coming across certain ways in emails, or to really grow that relationship and make sure we're not being offensive, or, it's really hard to kind of dig in on an email and sometimes a phone call when people are busy because we're lacking that personal face-to-face interactions. Do you have any tips that, not just in a sales role, but support staff and, can really hone in on to, add to that customer experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the communication challenges this year that we've all seen have been not just about, us to customer, but internal as well, right? Because now we're not, in the same environment with the people that we're working with. And absolutely miscommunications can happen so quickly. I think it's George Bernard Shaw who had a great quote that said, the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has happened. Right? A lot of times we think we've communicated something, or we think we're all on the same page. And my advice is, when something gets complex, pick up the phone. If you find yourself in the third paragraph of an email, that is an email that should not be an email, right? Anything more than like 5 sentences is just too much. The thing to do in that instance is to send a quick email or a text and say, hey, can you pick up the phone? Or there's a really great free tool that I love called Loom that allows you to record a free video from your desktop. Jump on a Loom, like start recording right from your browser, make a quick video, send a bomb video, send a voice memo from your phone. If you're like, I don't want to get on camera, but I don't have time to call somebody, record a 45-second voice memo or a 3-minute long voice memo. Because when you do that, you take out that that danger that something is going to be misinterpreted in an email. And even though sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get on the phone, again, it's like the analogy of learning to drive the car so you don't have to walk everywhere. If taking an extra 15 minutes now means you're saving 3 hours of cumulative time that's being wasted because 6 different people interpreted something 6 different ways and are all running in the wrong direction, that is something that you can't have happen. So to the extent that you can say, hey, this is a phone call thing, like we really need to connect live, or hey, let's just jump on a quick Zoom real fast. To the extent that you can do that, people are going to appreciate it, because it doesn't leave things open for interpretation or misinterpretation. And it's not going to be the first of 17 emails back and forth in a chain when 35 minutes later, you're like, this could have been an 8-minute phone call, and it's 35 minutes and 17 emails later, and everybody's more confused than they were when we started.
It's so easy just to be able to fire off that email and then wait for like the reply to clarify what you're trying to say and everything like that. And you really just waste more time going back and forth. I'm guilty of that. I've been there. It's hard to get out of that habit, but you're absolutely right. It makes a world of difference if we just pick up the phone, because then you can hear the tone, you can hear kind of what the message you're trying to imply. So I completely agree with you. So
really the best way to use email is to recap communications that happened not on email. Like the purpose of an email is after a call to say, thanks again for the call, to confirm, here's what's happening. These are the next steps. Thanks. And then you've sort of covered the bases. Now you have in writing. So you've given everybody the opportunity to understand during the phone call or the Zoom. And now you're putting it in writing saying, you know, kind of speak now or forever hold your peace. This is what we agreed on the next steps. If this doesn't look right to somebody, let us know now.
All right. How do you, so all your principles sound fantastic. And then you're on your website, it's sales and marketing, how you have impacts on these different metrics. But I think a lot of these principles also can apply to like our operational team, our internal teams, and how we can be super fans for our coworkers and our peers and everything like that. I think they really do apply. Do you feel like the same way can getting to know with curiosity and empathy with our coworkers? Do you think that can also be applied in those areas as well?
100%. And it's so important. And, you know, probably a psychologist would say like, Brittany has a problem. She wants everybody to like her. But I haven't asked a psychologist, so I don't know. But my point of view, my frame of reference is I want to create super fans all around me because I know how much more effective and impactful I can be when everyone feels like we're aligned and we're playing on the same team. So it's so important for you to be aligned, not only in your goals, but in the way that you work with the people on your team. Because think about it. You have 3 tasks in front of you that need your attention. 2 of them are for people that you're like, yeah, they're fine. 1 is for somebody that you're like, man, I love that person. All things equal, whose task is getting done first? The one for the person that you love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, the ROI on relationships is always, always, always there, whether it's internal or external. We're emotional creatures by design. And when given the opportunity to pick a thing to do, most of the time, we're going to lean towards the one that helps the person that we like, or who has been nice to us, or who has been there to prioritize things for us in the past. So creating that relationship is so critical.
That's great.
I've always wondered, you talked about, your story and how you can really develop that personal relationship, to create that super fan and customer experience. What's the best ways to kind of blend your personal story with your professional one? We both kind of have 2. There's obviously a ton in the middle, but, what's from a sales perspective, I'm always trying to get as much of my charming personality out and also bring that professionalism in to make sure that, I'm providing the best customer experience. So you have any tips on kind of blending those together to really get out there and have your customers get to know you as a person more?
Yeah, that's a great question, Angie. And what I will say to you is, I believe that we are kind of past the point of having a personal story and a professional story. We are now living in such a blended time where who we are is who we are from the minute we wake up to the minute we go to sleep, especially now that I don't know who said this, but I read a great quote a few months ago that said at some point we all went from working at home to living at work. And I don't know how much is going to get back to the old way post-COVID, but what the past year has done is accelerated this trend of who we are is who we are is who we are is who we are. And that's why we see people being held accountable for, it doesn't matter. Like if you say something terrible and you're stupid enough to put that online, it doesn't matter if you do it during office hours, because you don't stop being held accountable when you go home. Like when you punch out. So we are who we are. Our story is the same, whether we are telling it through a professional lens or a personal lens. So think about, let's say you go on a vacation and you have an amazing time. Let's say you're in college. Let's say you're in college and you go out for spring break and you have an amazing time with your buddies, right? That happened. That's the story. You might retell the story differently depending on if you're telling it to a buddy in your fraternity or to your grandma, or to your 4-year-old niece, right? It's the same story, but it's being delivered differently because the audience is different and the occasion is different. So who you are, your unique story and superpower is something that to your point, Angie, you want to let it shine. You want to let people know. Once you figure out your uniqueness, once you figure out what it is that you do better than anybody else in the world, that becomes part of your story, no matter who you're telling it to. But you may lean into different aspects of it. You may create a slightly different story set list based on the people in the audience. But let me ask you this, Angie, what is it about you that makes you better at your job than anyone else in the world?
I'm going to work harder than anybody else. I'm always going to go above and beyond more than anybody else. I'm going to care more.
You're going to care more. That's fantastic. So who are the right customers to come to you?
I mean, everybody should. However, you know, I really do thrive in having these long-term broker partnerships. I am not a fly-by-night person. I'm not a one lone girl. I want, you know, that relationship to be there, and I want to grow it, and I want to be a long-term partner. And if that's, you know, if that tickles your fancy, I'm your girl. You know, I don't want to be a temporary solution. I want to be a long-term one.
And that's amazing. And the fact that you know that, I hope you tell people this, right? I hope you're unapologetic about this preference. Do you tell people this when you first talk to them? Do you say, listen, this is not a one night thing, I want to ring? Like, is that part of your opening conversation when you meet people?
Yeah, I mean, I really drive that it's a partnership. You know, this is 50-50, and, you know, I'm going to go above and beyond. And yeah, I use the word partner is so important to me. You know, I don't use customer, I use partner. Like, we're in this together. We have the same goals. You know, I'm going to do my best to be an advocate. I'm going to do my best to close your loan. You're going to do your part, you know, with your borrower, and together we're going to get to that finish line and meet all of our goals. And so I really drive that word because I feel that. I definitely, personality wise, I can't really, I'm not a good kind of liar or anything. You know, I don't kind of hide my emotions all that well, but yeah, that part of that conversation, especially with a new broker, is, yeah, I mean, we're in this together, and we're fighting for the same goals, and that's what we're here for. And luckily, EPM really, just as a company, has that partnership goal. So it makes it a little easier, you know.
That's awesome. And I love that. And to have that as your story means, like, you know, your superpower is that you're going to outwork and outcare anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. How do we communicate our authenticity, you know, through email, through marketing campaigns, through just material? I feel like it's better to connect with someone when you're face to face, when you're talking to them. How do we connect to and tell our story through printed material or kind of a video? Are there ways that you find that are most effective to do that with the clients that you've seen that have been successful in the past?
Yeah. So video is a great way, because in video you can be authentic. It would be very hard. Like what Angie just said was so passionate and so great. I can't imagine a broker saying, oh, I don't want that, right? Unless it's somebody who's like, no, I'm like, if it's the kind of person who's like, no, I want to swipe right on a new person every day, like, you know, that's not a match for you. Like, she was so passionate, she was so definitive. And that's the power of video, because I don't know if you could have written ad copy or put together, you know, a social post that conveyed with that same level of passion what we just saw in video from Angie. And that's why I'm a huge fan of video for every stage of the marketing funnel and for working with your customers or your partners. If you are looking for content, first of all, don't get too wrapped up on the where. Like, I feel like a lot of people get really hung up on, like, I don't know how to create something for this channel. I don't know how to use this channel. Don't worry about the how. Don't worry about the where. Like, if you've got the who, which is your target customer that you're reaching, and the why, which is why they need to work with you, everything else takes care of itself. The others fall into place. Like, if you know what your message is and who you're delivering it to, it doesn't matter if you're doing it in, you know, a social post or an email or somewhere. I think capturing the authentic voice that you have to let people know why you're different from everybody else is always going to pay off.
Oh, that's excellent. No, and I completely agree. Video is just so much more easier too. You're able to just kind of be yourself. You don't have to kind of just, act or anything like that. So it makes you very transparent. So
Yeah, well, people say to me all the time, like, well, I don't know what I would record a video about. Like, first of all, people say like, I don't like the way I look on camera. Well, I'm sorry,
right.
that's how you look in real life too. And clearly from the past year, we've learned that we're going to be on camera perhaps more than we're not on camera for our jobs. So that's the reality. But if you feel like you don't know what you would do a video about, write down questions that you get asked all the time. What do your broker partners ask you? What do their customers ask them? What do you wish everyone knew? What are the biggest mistakes that you've seen? What do you wish you could say to every first-time home buyer? What do you wish you could say to every kid in college 10 years before they're going to think about buying a home? Like, what are the things that you want to say to people? Just make a list. And if you can write down 50 questions, guess what? Now you have a brand new video every week for the whole year up until Christmas. Right? Like, just write down the questions that people ask you all the time. I promise you, you guys have the content inside of you already because you are already experts. We forget how much we know because it's so easy to assume that what we know is known by so many other people, when in a lot of times it's not. Everybody watching this call right now is an expert at something, right? Every single person on this call can teach things to people that are valuable and important to them. So to the extent that you create those videos and do it, not only are you letting people get to know you, not only are you creating a really great entry point for an authentic relationship, but you're protecting somebody from consuming inferior information somewhere else. People say to me, I'm going to look like I have a big ego if I make videos, or people are going to be like, oh, that person has, thinks they're so great. Like, they think they're trying to be a celebrity. First of all, don't listen to haters. You will never be insulted by somebody doing more than you, ever. No one doing more than you in any facet of your life is ever going to insult you or berate you. Only people doing less. So don't listen to those losers, first of all. Second of all, don't you owe it to the people that you could serve to help them find you? If the alternative is that they are going to work with somebody who is not as good at your job as you are, and who's going to do a worse job helping them with perhaps the biggest, most important purchase they will ever make in their lives, don't you owe it to those people to have the opportunity to work with you instead of somebody who doesn't have their best interest at heart? And if you do owe it to them, what better way than to create content and put it out there for them to find it when they need it?
Absolutely. No, you hit it right on the head. That's fantastic.
I love it because you just pretty much summed up why people use broker.
Right? There you go.
And that customer base, you have that obligation to give your borrower, the greatest experience. And that's why they're using, a broker. And obviously I'm going to rah wholesale real hard. Sorry, retail. But, it has been a challenge for me a little bit this year with the lack of personal interaction. I like people, and I like seeing them in person, and it has been a little hard, and I am slightly horrified to be on camera. So it's getting out of my comfort zone and, kind of embracing, well, hey, this is what we have now. I kind of better get used to it, no better time. So that, hey, when COVID's over, I can, go back to seeing my, my brokers in person and events and all that. But I also have developed these skills, these alternative communication practices that I can kind of incorporate, into my wheelhouse for keeping up with, what they're doing. I also, I do like to ask, and sometimes it's just point blank, and maybe, in your opinion, it's, I say, what do you need? what is it that you're not getting from somebody else? You know, in the wholesale world, they have a bunch of lenders to choose from, and I don't want to be compared to others, but I do want to hear, you know, don't have to name names, but what are you not getting somewhere else, and that getting that info? What's the best way, other than just asking point blank, to really dive in and thrive on and sell essentially kind of those deficiencies that they're, you know, experiencing?
Well, that's a great question. I'm a fan of directness, especially if it's somebody that you have worked with before. I will also say, Shannon said it too. You look fantastic. Stop listening to the voices in your head telling you that you shouldn't be on camera, because you look great. You're doing a great job. You're so warm. You're so personable. So don't listen to those voices telling you anything other than that. I have two questions that I really like to ask to people to get to the heart of what they need. The first one is, I say, how can I make this the best experience you've ever had? And then whatever the thing is. So how can I make this the best loan experience you've ever had? What is it going to take? And that really allows you to open up the conversation to listen to what they say. And you can drill deeper. You can ask more from there. The other thing that I like to ask people when you're trying to understand maybe what's wrong or what hasn't been working or what's been difficult is, I like to say, if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing about this process, what would you do? And when you ask that question, it's a more fun way of saying, what's your biggest pain point, right? And it doesn't frame it as a negative, it's a positive. The positive is like, oh, you're waving a magic wand and you get to fix it, versus what's one thing that's really bad that we need to do a better job of, that you might get the same answer either way. But again, net negative, net neutral, net positive. If you're asking the question in a positive light, at least it gives you, a positive place that you're jumping off from there.
Great. I'm going to kind of turn it on and ask you a personal question. Have you ever had a time where you've gone from super pissed to super fan? And what happened in between that to turn it into that, for you to turn into a super fan?
Yeah, so I've had that happen a lot. And there's actually, there's like all this interesting research about people that, it's called the service something paradox. There's like all this research that if you have a customer who's had a terrible experience and you flip it and fix it, they oftentimes will be a more fierce advocate for your brand than had nothing gone wrong in the first place. Because people don't always expect you to be perfect. What they expect is accountability and transparency and action. So if it's wrong, if you've made a mistake, if something has happened and goes awry, when you can fix it and move forward, that's what people appreciate. So to answer your question, a couple of months ago, my husband had a brand new MacBook Pro. It was like not even a month old. And I had it on the counter because I was like doing something with one of the kids. And my husband accidentally knocked over a big old cup of tea onto the keyboard. Like soaked it to all the keys. And I was like, because they were like sticky from the underneath. Like I immediately turned the computer off, didn't use it for a couple of days, but like I would type and they were like sticking. And the little magic bar at the top, which if you guys don't have the new MacBooks with the magic bar, it's really fun. I use mine mostly for emojis, but they do have practical purposes as well, where you can just like touch screen it. So my touch screen stopped working. So I called Apple and all the Apple stores are closed. And the nearest certified person who could fix it, because it was a new computer, was like a 3-hour drive. So they were like, you're going to have to send it to us. So I was like, oh, okay, how long is it going to take? And they said, well, we're going to send you a box. You should have your computer back in 2 weeks, which is a long time not to have a computer, right? Now, luckily, I just bought the computer like 30 days earlier. So I still had my other MacBook, which was fine. It was, it wasn't as cool as the one I was used to, but it was like, whatever, it's fine. So send off my computer. And days go by, and I'm looking at like the Domino's pizza tracker style thing that says like, where my computer is, and nothing's happening. And so I call them and it's been 2 weeks. And she's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't have an update. And I was like, it's been 2 weeks. Like, is it going to be 2 more weeks? Like, it doesn't even say somebody's opened it. Like, I just want to know how long I can't use this computer, because I do presentations for a living. I'm on camera all the time. I was like, I need to know, like, if you had told me it was going to be 3 weeks, I would have just bought a new computer. Like, just tell me how long it's going to be. And so she was like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I was super pissed, right? So on day 15, she calls me and she says, we told you it would be 2 weeks. It's been 15 days. I understand you're upset. Here's what I'm going to do. If we don't have your computer out the door for you tomorrow, I'm sending you a brand new computer. And I was like, awesome, great. Like, that's all I want is a computer. Like, let me know. The next day they like cleaned my computer, sent it back to me. And so I was like, okay, great. I'm going to have it. So it ended up being with them sending it back. And, you know, with the weekends, it was like 22 days or something. I was without my computer when I was thinking maybe it would be like 14 max. And I was pissed, right? I was like, man, if I'd known it was going to be that long, like maybe I would have done something differently. So the person who had been like my agent called me and said, hey, we know this is unacceptable. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you $300 to spend in our accessory store, like pick out whatever you want. Also, we're going to refund the money you paid for Apple Care, which was like $300 when I bought the computer, and the $99 that I paid for that repair. So they ended up crediting me like $400. And then they gave me $300. They were like, just pick out whatever you want and we'll send it to you. And so, you know, all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, thanks, Apple. That's great. Now I don't feel so bad about being without my computer. And because they gave me credit for accessories, I was like, well, I just bought all this new stuff on my computer. I just bought a brand new pair of AirPods. And I was like, well, my kid's been bugging me to get a new iPad. I might as well buy a new iPad, and then I'll use this $300 to get like the, you know, magic pencil and the keyboard case and all the stuff that goes with it. So I spent another $800 to buy this brand new like iPad Air so that I could use the $300 credit to like, you know, support this new iPad. So I went from being really pissed to feeling like, okay, they do care about their customer experience. They are excited about me. They totally turned it around at any point during that day. Like from day like 14 to 18, like, I'm not going to lie. Had I had a little bit more time, I might've been the crazy person who went on Twitter and was like, Apple, you know, like I could have said some nasty things because I was upset that no one was communicating with me. I was upset that my expectation wasn't being met. I was told it would be 2 weeks, that I would have my computer back in 2 weeks. And now I'm like, it's been more than 2 weeks and you haven't even told me anything. I was upset about my communications not being met, but I was more upset about the lack of communication. Nobody was telling me what was going on. And a lot of times, think about yourself as a customer. A lot of times that's the thing that drives you the craziest, right? Is you're like, I need to close this loop. I need to understand where we're at. I need to know what's happening. So when you're not communicating that with your customer, that's a lot of times where things go wrong. That's the gasoline on the fire of CX in the wrong direction, is people getting upset that no one's communicating with them. No one's answering their email. Even if it's just a note back that says like, I don't have any new information, but I'm working on it. I promise this is on my radar and I appreciate you reaching out, is enough to take somebody like down a few notches.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So you would say probably lack of communication maybe be your biggest pet peeve then when you're working with, you know, a company then.
Yeah. And I would say it's one of the quickest ways to ruin an otherwise good relationship. If you are in a sales facing role, when you don't communicate with someone, essentially what you're saying to them is, you are not important to me. Right. And again, humans are emotional creatures. So we go back down to that base level of when you feel like you're being ignored, it makes you feel like you're not important. And that this person who is supposed to care about you, who is entered into this relationship saying, I'm going to do things for you because I care about you as a person, they're no longer living up to their end of the deal. Like they're not keeping the deal anymore. Like they've broken that trust. Mm-hmm. And you know, obviously that's like the way subconscious level, but that's what's happening, right? Like when you reach out to somebody and they don't reach out back to you, when they don't respond, even though rationally that person is not saying, I don't care about you, I don't love you, you're not important, I've got better things to do. Sometimes that's the way we as customers feel, even if we don't realize it. So communication is so important to make people feel appreciated, validated, important, seen, heard, all of those things. Even if you're just saying, I don't have an update yet, I wanted to let you know that this is very much on my radar and it's important. And I promise you we're going to get it resolved together. Thank you for being an amazing partner. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no, and it's actually, it's part of telling your story, right? Is how you communicate. The story I'm going to communicate to you is how, how often I'll communicate to you, how often I'll respond to you, how quickly I'll respond to you. That's part of telling your story. So that's fantastic. I love that.
In everything that you do is telling your story. Like every email that you send is marketing. The choice of the words that you use, whether or not you're using emojis or GIFs, whether or not you say something in your signature, everything is marketing. If you're the kind of person who likes to have a message that's like in red letters, bold, giant, that says something, right? Versus somebody who's not communicating with like underline, bold, red, 7 exclamation points. All of those things matter. And all of those things are marketing. They're telling the person on the other end of the communication who you are as a person and how much they matter to you.
I love that you brought up with the Mac situation. You could have been one of those people that went on Twitter, like just trash them. And I mean, we live in a review society now, and with lots of, we've seen Facebook groups and industry, chatter. How do you handle best a negative review or trash talk or somebody just venting, on social media about either you, the company, their experience with you? What are some tips on how to actually handle that when that happens?
Well, that is a great question, and I am so excited to answer it in my brand new position. I don't think I mentioned it yet on this call, but I very recently joined the team at experience.com, formerly known as Social Survey. And Social Survey had been a longtime client of mine, and I was such a fan of the team over there and their product and the vision and this brand new platform that we just launched earlier this month. So I am now the Chief Experience Officer of experience.com, formerly known as Social Survey. So reviews and surveys are something that I have spent a lot of time learning about. And the most important thing that you can do in a situation where somebody has said something negative about you online is to reach out to them. Think of it as somebody who's trying to get your attention, who's trying to reach you, right? A lot of times people leave those negative reviews because they feel like that's the only way to have their voice heard. Again, it goes back to, if you don't feel like you've been acknowledged, if somebody isn't validating you, what is your recourse? A lot of times it's to like have a tantrum, right? Or to say like, I've got to tell the world that this is the only way I can write it. We as humans are constantly trying to find a way to make things make sense. We're trying to find a way to clear the chaos and make things make sense. And so a lot of times when we feel like we've been wronged, we feel like our only recourse is to go tell someone about it. So when somebody leaves you a negative trash talk review, reach out directly to them to the extent that you can. And I don't mean like litigate it online. The worst thing that you can do, is to ignore it. The very worst thing that you can do is to not acknowledge it all. The second worst thing that you can do is to try to litigate it in the court of public opinion, to respond to them and be like, well, actually, we know that you did this or you did that or you did whatever. Your response should be, dear so-and-so, I'm so sorry that you had this experience. We are looking into this internally. I want to have and make sure this is coming from a person. Like an apology should never come from a company. A company is not a person. A person at a company should apologize on behalf of the company. So always make sure it is coming from a specific person who says, I am so sorry. I want to get to the bottom of this to make sure that we can fix this for you and that this never happens again. And then whatever, like if you know how to reach out to them, say like somebody will be reaching out. If you don't, say, please reach out to me directly. Here is how you get in touch with me. This needs to be resolved, if for no other reason, so that it never happens again. Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. We appreciate you. We promise to do better. This is not acceptable. This is not who we are. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and we are not going to allow it to happen again. Like that is how you should respond in a way so that future people seeing it are like, oh, okay, they took ownership. They weren't the people that were like, well, this isn't true and this never happened, because that never makes you look good. Imagine that you're in a movie and there's always like that character in the movie that you love because they're like taking the punches, right? And you're like, man, what a great guy. Or like, what a great person. Like they could have exploded. They could have lost their temper, but they didn't. And everybody loves them for it, right? Imagine you're that person in the movie. Like try to respond the way that person would. When you get the person on the phone to fix the mistake, it's three things. It's number one, apologize. Even if it wasn't your fault, apologize. Acknowledge what happened. That's the second A. Acknowledge the fact that this is a big deal. Maybe what you did or somebody at your organization did, or the perception of what somebody at your organization did had these ripple effects that you aren't aware of, right? Like maybe you're like, oh, closing was delayed by a week. So what? But then we all know like the 900 things that we're not thinking about that could happen because something that somebody was expecting to happen didn't happen. So acknowledge that it's a bigger deal than perhaps even you think it is. Give them the opportunity to tell you why. And then atone or address what you're going to do to make it better. How can you fix it? Sometimes fixing it means that individual situation. So like with me, I didn't ask Apple for a credit. They said, we are so sorry, here's $300. Atone. What are you doing? Sometimes that's just moving forward. Sometimes the atonement is saying, we have fixed this problem. We have created an internal system or process to make it better. So that is how you address the negative. And one thing that a lot of people don't do is ask people for feedback enough times throughout a customer journey. So you think about a sales cycle that's 30 days or 45 days, or a process that's taking a really long time. If you wait until the end to ask someone how it's going, first of all, you can't fix it, right? You're now asking them about a memory, not a moment. So there's nothing you can do in the moment to fix it. But then you've got somebody who feels like something went wrong 72 days ago, and they've been letting it fester for 72 days, waiting on you to ask them how it went. So to the extent that you can break down your customer journey, look at the actual touch points that people are going throughout the process. If that's a process of a wholesale loan, great. What are all of the important steps? What are the milestones? And can you ask them a question or two at several stops along the way? And if you do that, and if you can frame the questions in a way that are coming from a positive standpoint that say, hey, how was your experience with this? Is there anything we can do to make it better? Not only are you giving them the chance to let you know that something's going wrong now so that you can fix it before it's a memory, but you're also making them feel heard, seen, validated, important, so that by the time it gets to the end, there's a much less likelihood that, you didn't like let the teeth rot for a year before you caught the cavity. You were like, oh, it's tiny little bitty cavity. We can put some of that like magic stuff over it and like everything's good. Everybody goes on their way.
I love that. And I love the thought of, being proactive. If, it's taken 45 days to close a loan that was expected to be 2 weeks, we know how it's going. So acknowledging like, hey, I know this isn't going as smooth as we would have liked, and just kind of checking in has been, it's been pretty successful for me because it gets a conversation going, but it's also that acknowledging beforehand. That things aren't going that great, but I hear them and I already know this and what we're doing to get it moving. But no, that's great feedback. That stage when people watch how you respond to a nasty review or comment on a Facebook group, everyone's watching to see how, spill the tea, look, how are they going to respond? And it's kind of an opportunity, I think, to kind of show off that, your skills there on handling an ugly situation and moving forward.
Yeah, and it is. And you know what? Like, make yourself an I'm the bigger person jar. And every time you're like, I had to like bite the bullet and swallow my pride and be the bigger person, like put something in that jar. And when that jar is filled up, go buy yourself something nice, right? Like have a star list. I used to have when I was doing sales, I had a no chart. And every time somebody told me no, I would put a little star on it, like the kind you use for kindergartners. And every time I filled up a row of no, I would go and buy myself something. Sometimes I would just like go get ice cream for lunch. Sometimes it would be, I'm going to buy myself a nice pair of shoes or a nice shirt or whatever. Cause I was like, wow, I put myself out there enough times for 10 people to tell me no. And that's great because now that's 10 more people who know about my business, who know what I'm doing. And at some point, maybe there'll be a yes in the future. So do something like that to track the number of times that you had to be the bigger person and reward yourself for it, because it sucks in the moment, right? Like nobody likes to be that one, but the communication is so important. And Angie, you hit the nail on the head. Like think about if you're having a fight with your significant other and you're just like, well, I know they're mad, so I'm not going in there. How does that ever work, right? Like, is it ever better that you waited 4 hours to like slowly open the door and be like, are you still mad? Because they're still mad, but now they're 4 hours more mad than they would have been 4 hours ago. So you've got to rip off the Band-Aid. You've got to deal with the situation. You've got to check in and say, listen, I know we thought this was going to be 2 weeks and it's been 45 days. This sucks. There's no sugarcoating it. I'm sorry. Here's the update on my end, even if there's no update. What can I do for you? How can I help you? What can I do to help you make this better for the people that we're counting on this? And just, having the guts to be like, even though I know this is a tough phone call, I'm going to make it and I'm going to do my best to make it a net neutral instead of a net negative.
That's fantastic. When you're talking with a client or a customer that is just supremely like upset, are there any words that you try and use or any words that you think you avoid when you're talking to someone who's either upset or when you just meet someone? Is there anything that you just default to that you think works well in the moment?
That is a great question. So one of the best things that you can do is let people talk. And do not use any language that sounds like you're trying to deflect or minimize. So you don't want to say, I know you feel this way, right? Or I know you think we messed up. You just want to let them vent.
Sounds so condescending.
Right. Let them vent and let them know that you hear them, right? I'm sorry are such powerful words. And so many people are afraid to apologize. People think that when you apologize, it makes you look weak. It absolutely does not. When you apologize, it makes you look like you care about the other person and you're owning up for something, right? And people are like, oh, I don't want to admit that it was my fault. Or if I say I'm sorry, people are going to think it's my fault and it wasn't. It was somebody else's fault on my team. But at some point when you're saying sorry, you're not taking responsibility. You're saying, I have empathy for you. I care. I understand. I'm so sorry this is happening. Not this is my fault and I owe you an apology.
Have you seen any like words, like as soon as you say a word, you're like, I probably shouldn't have said that. Right as it's coming out of your mouth, you're like, oh, that's the worst thing I could have said at this moment.
When people are really upset, try to avoid you language. Like try to stop. Just try not to say you at all. Like let them talk. Don't say you. Lead with I.
Okay. All right. That's great. That's a good practice that I probably should start using then.
Yeah. When people are upset, a lot of times people just want to vent. And when you say, I'm sorry you feel that way, how can we fix this? We is a good word to use. we is always a good word.
That's great. Excellent tip. Thank you.
Awesome. We probably are close to the end of our hour. So if any of the team has any questions for Brittany, look, we're getting the creep.
Getting the hook.
There from Eric.
Yeah. Does anybody have any, or are we getting the hook? Do we have time for chat? I don't want to keep you over. Sorry, Eric. Oh, we do? Okay.
Eric, give me the giant thumb up in the face.
Yeah, any questions anybody has, pop them in the chat. And it looks like I have a Q&A from Andromeda. What a gorgeous name. What an awesome name. She said, yeah, in therapy, we do this. Yeah, probably we. Like, I'm trying to figure out based on the time what we were talking about. But yeah, using I language and we language, so important. It's so funny. So I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 9-month-old. And as my older son gets a little older, I'm like, wow, raising a kid is like the best exercise ever for learning how to deal with people, because people are exactly the same from the time they're born. They just like get taller and older and learn to talk and have credit cards, but like they're exactly the same people. So communicating with a 3-year-old is so similar to trying to communicate with customers and trying to get things done because, we want what we want. Like, we are emotional, needy creatures by design. And to the extent that you can handle people's needs and emotions, you will be very successful in whatever you do, but specifically you will be successful in sales.
Excellent.
Love it.
Any more questions? Any questions in the chat queue?
Maybe we answered everybody's.
Yeah. Oh, there's one. Oh, we already did that.
That's a great question. This might be from Molly. Tell us about a time a partner relationship just really wasn't salvageable. What's the best way to handle it? Yeah, you know what? Sometimes you just got to walk away. And the best way to handle it is with as much grace as you can, to a way to where you're not like, lighting the match and throwing it and burning the bridge. Just say, you know what? I'm sorry that we weren't a great fit. And I think we can both agree that we would be happier if in the future we each look for, for different solutions. I appreciate you. I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to give this a try, but it didn't work out. And you just, try to part as friends as you can. If you can't part as friends, try not to part as enemies. A really great thing that you can do too is have a list of other people that you can say. Like, if somebody comes to you and says, I want to work with you again, and you know for a fact you never want to work with that person again, you can say something like, I would love to help you, but I've got so much on my plate that I know that right now I'm not going to be able to give you the attention that you deserve. Here are some amazing people that might have more capacity right now to help you get what you need. And then you just like give them some names, maybe of people that you don't like, if this is somebody you never worked with, right? It's like, make it someone else's problem. But yeah, you're not ever going to be everybody's cup of tea. And that's why, when Angie, I said, who are the right customers to work, or who are the right partners for you, right? You said, I don't want customers, I want partners. That's great. Knowing who you don't want to work with is so important, because you don't want those to be a time suck, a resource suck, an energy suck. So finding out who you don't want to work with is something that everybody goes through. Once you learn that you can fire customers, you're so empowered to go out there and find the right customers in the future. Okay, Suzanne says, thank you, Molly. I'm glad that you like that. Suzanne says, how do you be a super fan of coworkers without coming across as a suck up or being condescending? Great question, Suzanne. So the way you do it is by having that curiosity and having that empathy that we talked about before. It's not sucking up to them. It's saying, I want to get to know you because I'm curious about who you are as a person. Like, who are you outside of work? What's important to you? What shows are you binge watching? What do you eat? What can we do? Who are you? Getting to know who they are as a person and being curious about them. I see you looking off screen. Are we getting in trouble?
No, I've got distractions over here.
Oh, okay.
We're doing great. You're doing fantastic.
Making funny faces. I was going to say, I'll keep going until you tell me we got to stop.
No. Keep going. Eric said I have free reign.
Okay. Frank says, is my son still going to Michigan? I hope so, Frank. He is only 3.5, so we've got a little bit of time. But he is like crazy athletic. It's insane. I wish there was like American Ninja Warrior for preschoolers, because my son would for sure be in it. I don't know. I guess athletic ability skips a generation, because I had none.
I like that she brought being a super fan of your coworkers, because with so many of us working remote, or I've never actually met majority of my coworkers that I'm seeing on paper and emails, and it is really nice to have an opportunity to get to know somebody as a person, instead of just a name and a pop-up. And I have gotten to know someone on a personal level. It's amazing, and our communication styles then can get more personal, and we understand each other. And I think that lack of understanding of tone, things like that, goes a long way with your coworkers. I mean, I'm a super fan of a ton of my teammates, and I also, and you can give us some tips, like when somebody is really upset, or and also the positive, when somebody's had a really good experience, I want to bring my team into that win. I wasn't actually the person that got that loan closed in 8 days. I have a whole team out there supporting me and helping me succeed. And if there's any tips of how, the best way to bring a team in, that'd be great.
Yeah, never, ever, ever be afraid to share praise, right? It is amazing how much you can get done when you don't care who gets credit or you don't care that you get credit. So every single time that you can shine that light on somebody and let them be the hero, do it, right? You don't need to be the hero. And that person that you made look like the hero, even if the reality is they helped a little, but you did most of the work, let them have that moment in the spotlight, right? There's always going to be an ROI. And, you know, to your point, Angie, so many of us are working with people that we've never met before inside our team and out. And the really unique thing about this moment in time that we're living through is we're getting to go inside of people's bedrooms, right? We're getting to go inside of their homes. We're seeing their children. We're seeing their pets. There's the opportunity to learn so much about people. Like, I've been dying to ask you about that scorpion. I'm like, does she live in the desert? She's got these owls. She's got a scorpion behind her. Like, what's the deal? Like,
It's
I've
a
got
crab because I'm from Maryland.
Oh, it's a crab. Okay, I thought it was a scorpion because he was under the owl. I was like, is it a scorpion? So what's going on with the owls?
I just am a sucker for mid-century art, and it's made in the 60s, and I love it.
There you go. See, that's like, I have 100 follow-up questions that I want to ask. So there's always a way, even if it's on video screen, to say, you know, how can I get to know somebody better? And I got to be honest, I am so glad that is a crab and not a scorpion, because I was like, who has a scorpion?
I'm not that girl. I'm not. Awesome.
Seriously.
All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions.
Oh, Brittany, thank you so much. This was absolutely fantastic. I have several takeaways that I'm actually going to implement immediately, just in my communication and with my team and how I engage everyone around me. So really, thank you. This was invaluable.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that it was helpful. If anybody has anything that you need from me or anything that I can do to be helpful, I'm just Brittany at BrittanyHodak.com. So feel free to send me a note. I've got a lot of cool freebie stuff on my website, and I'm so thrilled in my new capacity as Chief Experience Officer of Experience.com. So if you've got any questions about how to design your customer journey, how to check in with your customers at all of the right times, let me know, and I will be thrilled to help you with that as well.
Congratulations also. So well, that's exciting. That's awesome.
Yes, the dream job I never knew I always needed.
All right, excellent. So if there's anything else.
So thank you so much, Brittany. We really appreciate you being on today. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Logan, for participating in interviewing her. She's an awesome person to interview always. One thing I will say about Brittany is I could never tell if she was just being a nice person or if she really wanted to be my friend, but I'm so glad that I'm continually able to communicate with her, and she responds to me how I like to be responded to, and we communicate through Instagram, even though I know she doesn't check it all the time. But with that said, thank you so much again. And wholesale team, keep an eye out for Brittany in March. She's going to be training you on the new certification communication training series. So keep an eye out on that. It's going to be great.
That's awesome.
And I'm so excited about that because this is something that I'm putting together specifically for my friends at EPM. So I'm so inspired by your fundamentals. I love the EPM way. I cannot wait to reconnect with you guys and work on the certification series. It's going to be so much fun.
Absolutely. Thank you. And this is being recorded, so we'll send it out again so everybody can revisit all the different awesome Brittany-isms that she brought. So
even better. Thanks, y'all. Logan, Angie.
Thank you.
Blast. Talk to y'all soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Valerie. Bye.